So I wanted to take a few minutes and go over the discussion questions that I just sent out to everyone. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is the definition of hope. Mark said that hope is a funny thing because its power is based on the object in which you place your hope. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things from the Bible. In the Old Testament, there was this idea of patient waiting for the salvation of the Lord, and that he's a promise-keeping God. He's merciful and gracious. He's a steadfast, covenant-keeping God. And the word that is most often used for hope is the Hebrew word, which is pronounced quivah, which is transliterated QWH. And one of the passages of scripture that I gave that this word quivah appears in is Genesis 49:18. And it says, in Genesis 49:18, it says, I quivah your salvation, O Lord. I wait patiently for your salvation. And so there's this idea of this future experience of God in his presence. But it's also in the Hebrew understanding in the Old Testament, it's also the blessing now. So as I wait, you bless me. That's my hope, but my hope is in this future experience of your presence. Quivah is a word for hope, and I just want you to see that it has a present understanding and a future understanding. That's very important. And then in the New Testament, the word most often translated, the English word hope, is this hope that we understand as elpis is the Greek word. And I just wanted to read this quote from one of the guys that I read. It says, the verb elpesian is used throughout the Septuagint. So this is the Greek Old Testament in the same way as it appears in the New Testament. The noun elpidas appears in the Apocrypha literature also, and it's to signify that which is hoped for. One cannot, Boltman says this, one cannot but choose to die at the hands of mortals and to cherish the hope God gives of being raised again by him. Boltman goes on to say, in every instance, the word elpis, that's translated hope, means expectation with the nuance of counting upon. So it's our hope, and we are counting on it happening. So it's hope, as I define it, as I try and wrap my mind around the Old Testament and the New Testament. Hope is the confident expectation of a future good result. So our hope is not in ourselves. It's not in any material possession we have here, but only in the promises of God. And so Mark is correct in saying it's a tricky thing because the power that our hope has is based on the object that we place our hope in. And that can only be God, and for us as Christians, Jesus Christ, his Son. The next thing I wanted to point out in the discussion questions was this idea of hostility. And what I want to try and do is captivate people's affections by forcing them to think about who's around their table. So who are the influences that they're inviting into their home? And the question is kind of squishy, but what I'm trying to get at is the influences that we have are not just human beings that we talk to, but human beings that we let into our lives or who have been in our lives in the past and still are speaking in some of those false beliefs that we have, that people have spoken into our lives from the time we were little. They're around our dinner tables, emotionally, spiritually, philosophically, metaphorically, they're still there. And who are we inviting in, and who are we keeping out? who's not allowed at our table. And what we'll see if we look at this carefully, and I hope that your groups get at this in your discussions, is we have bias in who we allow at our table. And what we need as human beings more than anything else is more inputs, a bigger perspective. God's perspective is so much higher than ours, and we need the people in our community to help us to have that new perspective. I hope that that makes sense. The second part of captivating the affections is your story of hostility. So what are some of the stories that are lodged in your brain and in your heart that keep people out of your table or allow people in? Are they people that are easy to be around? Do you keep out people who are hard to be around and that make you uncomfortable and make you feel weak or insignificant? Or maybe they're people that have hurt you in the past, so you keep that type of person away from you and away from influencing you and even talking about those kind of situations. And that hostility, those walls of hostility remain. And that's what Mark is trying to get us to think about. And then what we can do is move the will. It's like, okay, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I love. That's what I hate. And now how do I change? And so the last question is from Pastor Mark's sermon: anger, judgment, prejudices, nursing offenses, looking at people as objects for personal gain or objects for personal desire. When we objectify other people or we boil people down to a specific attribute or the likeness of someone else who had that specific attribute, we are justified in ourselves because of our anger, the judgment, the past prejudice that, hey, I'm just being smart, I'm just being wise, keeping this person away from me. Or I need this person around me because they fulfill something that I need. And so how do these beliefs manifest themselves? And then what is God asking you to do to consider them? Whether it's because of anger or prejudice or a need for something that somebody's giving you, how can you begin to root out that hostility? Because even with those people that we bring into our table, if we're doing it for them to fulfill our needs, that's hostility. It's not love, it's not care, and we need to see it as God sees it. So root out that hostility. We are desiring to meet people where they are and to fill them up and to allow them to fill us up and to change us. If we're locked into not allowing others to change us, we won't receive all that God has for us in this community called Haven. I hope these questions make sense to you. Please text me if you have any questions. It was a great sermon. I hope that you'll listen to it again and work through these questions. And I hope your conversation is a great one. I had fun writing the questions, and I hope they're helpful. We'll talk to you soon.